Okay. Almighty Lord and Supreme Creator of the universe, we are very humble, grateful, and thankful for the lesson we are about to receive during our studies. We appreciate your infinite wisdom. We'll continue with our love, peace among each other, and pray for all those in need of our help in the hospitals. We pray for our doctors, our nurses, and technicians that are helping all those in the hospitals. May the peace of the Lord be with all of us. God bless everyone.
So be it.
So, hello,
So be it.
everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are in the first book, part 4. I believe we are in intervention of God in rewards and atonements, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you all see my screen? Is it good? The size, it's okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Iago, can you read for us? Iago isn't here. You there or no? No, I don't think he is. Fabio, could you read?
I might have, I think I might get interrupted, just that I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, so I'll do it. Intervention of God in rewards and atonements. Question 963. Is God personally concerned with each person? Is God not too great and are we not too small for each individual to be of any importance to the Creator? God is concerned with all of creation, no matter how small they may be. Nothing is too small or insignificant for God's goodness. I'm going to stop here because the other one is very big. So let's make a little comment on that. We have here, actually, I guess a question that all of us will ask ourselves every now and then. How come God can know what I know, feel what I feel, be present, hear me when I need? So it's very difficult for us to have an idea of God and how God can act in our lives. So there is a passage on the Gospel according to Spiritism that they try to explain exactly this question here, 963, which is how can actually God be concerned with each and every one? How can he deal with each and every one, considering that, the whole universe, we are not talking only about planet Earth. And they give us an example saying the following: if we go to the top of a mountain and we look down and we see all the grains of sand that may be down, it's very much like God. God is like, he can look and see every grain of sand, meaning each one of us. So regardless of how small we are, which planet we belong, God will always be connected with us, and somehow, for lack of a better understanding and vocabulary, everything we do and we think resonates in God. And this is how God can actually act and assist us and know our needs. Okay?
Yes.
Right.
964. Is God...
You want me to read it, Usada?
Yes, if you can, that's wonderful.
Okay, I will. 964. Is God concerned with each of our actions to reward or punish us? Are most of such actions insignificant to God? God's laws apply to all your actions, and if you violate them, it is your fault. When a person violates one of those laws, God does not say, "You have been gluttonous. I will punish you for it." However, God has set a limit. Diseases and even death are the consequences of overstepping that limit. Anytime you are disciplined, it is a result of violating a law. Everything happens that way. All our actions are subject to God's laws. Any wrongdoing on our part, no matter how inconsequential it may seem to us, is a violation of those laws. When we experience the consequences of such violations, we can only blame ourselves, as we are the sole architects of our happiness or misery, as is shown in the following narrative. A father has educated and instructed his child on how to guide himself in life. He hands over a piece of land to him to farm and says, I have given you the practical directions and all the necessary tools for making this land productive and earning a living. I have given you all the instruction needed for understanding those directions. If you follow them, your land will yield abundant harvest, and you will be able to rest in your old age. If you do not, it will bear nothing, and you will die of hunger. Having said this, he leaves him to his own devices. It is not true that the land yields crops corresponding to the skill and care invested in its cultivation, and that any mistake or negligence on the part of the son has a harmful effect on the harvest. Therefore, the son will be comfortable or poor in his old age, depending on whether he has followed or neglected his father's directions. God is even more farsighted. We are told at every moment whether we are doing right or wrong through the spirits that are sent to guide us, although we do not always listen to them. There is also the difference that if the son wasted his time, he has no opportunity to repair his lapses, while God will always give him the means of correcting his mistakes through new lives.
Okay. So here is something that we have been talking about quite often in terms of, first of all, to understand once and for all that God does not punish us. And here the spirits are clearly telling us God will not say, I will punish you for this or that, according to our behavior, the actions that we have chosen for ourselves with our free will. There is just one thing. There is the law of God. There is the law of creation, the law of the universe. And if we go against this law, there will be consequences. But again, it is our choice. It's not God punishing us. So every time we exceed ourselves in a bad way, there will be consequences. Like they say here, if you eat too much, there is no way you are not going to feel that later. It was your choice. You know that this is a risk, and still you chose to eat something that can be damaging to your health, or eat too much that can affect your digestion, that can interfere somehow. So again, for us to try to be blaming God for everything that happens to us is not correct. And they give us this beautiful example, like when they say the father gives the child a farm and says, if you want your farm to succeed, you have to do this, this, and that. Of course, meaning that the father has the experience, the knowledge to give to us. So whether the son is going to do that or not, it's his choice. But the consequences are going to be related to his choice. If he follows good advice from someone that is experienced and know and try to tell you what to do, in the right way, because it knows that it's the only way that you are going to succeed, he's going to have a good result. If he resists because, I want to try a different way, or this is too hard, or, all the excuses that we have, it will depend the result on that. The important thing, the important point here is even when they say that all the time we have spirits that are sent to us to guide us. Let us not imagine only discarnate spirits. We have a lot of guardian angels that are very much incarnate on this earth. It's starting many times, with our parents. They
Right.
may not be the wisest in the world, but every now and then they come with advices that certainly comes from their experience, or at least it comes from the intuition, the inspiration they may be receiving from other spirits. So here, when they say they send the spirits to guide us, to help us, but most of the time we don't listen to them, it means also the incarnate people. How many people we have in our lives that came every now and then and tell us, listen, I don't think I think you should reconsider your actions. I'm not even saying don't do that, just saying reconsider it, right? Suggesting that we have to think about more about certain actions, certain situations we may choose for our lives. So it's very important for us to have that in mind. Again, I know this is not what we want it to be, because it's wonderful when we can blame each and every one for everything bad that happens to us. But unfortunately, like they say here, everything that we go through in life is only the consequence of what we are doing with our lives, meaning the several ones that we have been having, which consequences we are still feeling today, not to mention the things that we are doing now that also will provoke consequences, good or bad, according to our actions.
Jusara,
Yes.
is, isn't there a contradiction where we hear that we have to go through our trials and to learn a lesson that we did in previous reincarnation? So isn't there a conflict? We have to go through that, and I find a contradiction, and it seems like we're in the human side, not the spirit side. When we're in the human side, science says, "I don't want you to suffer. I'm going to do everything I can to make you uh, well." Where God will say, "Well, this is part of your consequence, and you have to go through." This is what happens when I read, when I hear from what the spirits are saying.
Not really, Orlando, because again, we have to understand that every trial that we have, it represents the consequence of our actions. And so it's not God that is telling us that we will have to face this or that. Is if I took the path of the right, when I could have go ahead, or the one of the left, or the one behind me, I will have to deal with what is on the path of the right that I have chosen. So whatever challenges, whatever trials, tests I will go through, it means that it is a result of my choices, of my actions. So there is no contradiction in terms of what we are talking about here. Because again, it's always up to us to decide what we are going to do with our lives. Again, like I said, it's like we are, playing a game. All games have rules. Okay. So the rules of the games, meaning the law of the universe, the natural laws, are there. You want to play the game, go with the game the way that is going to be advantageous to you, or for whatever reason you want to go astray, at least for a part of this, this journey. it is your choice, but then you, instead of advancing, you will go back, like, the board games that we play. It's in a way, of course, we are not talking about a hazard here, the playing of dice.
Mhm.
We are talking about more of the consequences. So there is no contradiction in that. Is there anyone that would like to say something or commenting?
Mm.
Jusada, I think of what you said was so understanding and beautiful that uh, we have mothers, right? And the mothers are the ones that teach us when we're very young. They say sometimes, "Oh, my mother's like a guardian angel." Sometimes there's a phrase of that throughout land. Sometimes they say that, and then you think of all that as we're very young and we're growing up. We're taught ever since we're tots that mothers will tell you, to put your finger on that socket, you get hurt. And sometimes tots will put the finger and then feel it, right? And even ever since we go back to our young years, they've been teaching us that, this is wrong, don't do that. If you do that, you pay the consequences. And now at this age of growth and growing up, so be it as it is in life that when you go the wrong path, you're going to pay. Consequences are going to come. So everything that we do, even at little tots, consequences are going to be paid. We're going to pay, and it's not God. And isn't God great that He gives us the advantage of coming back, reincarnation? You apply reincarnation into our lives. We come back to redo, fix, and repair everything that we've done wrong, even if you don't remember. But we have our conscience that it's there. It's always imprinted in there. So it's so beautiful, as you say. Mothers are like guardian angels, and they are.
Yeah,
If we're lucky enough to have good mothers and beautiful mothers, but so.
Mhm.
It's so interesting, Zoraida, what you said, because right now, I don't know if you can see because you're using your phone, the back screen ground of my TV is the picture of my mother. And the
Oh
reason
my
I do
God.
that is sometimes for her, because I know she's a model for me in this life. Every time I look at her, she awakens something in my conscience that how I should proceed. And it makes
Yes.
me meditate if I could not do a little better. Because in the beginning of the answer from the Spirit, he say, I'm with a different version here, but I'm reading from the paper, okay, on the book. God has established the divine laws that regulate all your actions. If you violate them, the fault is yours. So, according to the Spirit's book, all the divine laws are written in our conscience. So if they are written in our conscience, and when you deviate, you're not deviate because it's from somebody else outside that told us to do it. It's because there's something inside that you're not searching. We're not in connection with the best of ourselves. And because of that, we start to make mistakes. As more we evolve and more we understand these divine laws, more we become responsible. It seems to be more painful, yeah? Because as more
Yes.
knowledge you
Yes.
have, more you need to be responsible to make better choice in our lives. But sometimes because we have been acting instinctively for so long, it's not easy. Even though we know the right path to do it, there's a part of us that doesn't want to do yet. And then come the consequence, and you see the consequence as punishment. But no, they're just lessons that God allows in this beautiful way that He designed this planet to happen in order for us to progress in the right direction. But it's a perception again. Yeah, if you really have the deep understanding, how can you question the love of the Creator? We know He wants the best for us, but He has rules in this planet that say, "Listen, Adilson, if you deviate too much in this direction, you'll be depleting of energy. You feel poor. You have scarcity, and because of that, you feel hunger and thirst. Don't you want to come back where there's so much plenty? Because I have enough to give to you." So I think is the whole idea is how can I access my conscience? Because there God speaks through us to have abundance. But sometimes we decide through the ego to make a choice that hurt us.
That's right.
Mm.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. Can you read us, right, the nature of future
Yes.
joys and sorrows?
Yes. Do the joys and sorrows of the soul after death have any material aspect? Common sense tells you that they cannot be of a material nature, because the soul is not matter. There is nothing cardinal in those joys and sorrows, yet they are 1,000 times more vivid than those you experience on earth, because the spirit, when freed from matter, is more sensitive. Matter stifles feelings and sensations. Why do people often form unrefined and absurd ideas of joys and sorrows of the future life? Because their intelligence is still imperfectly developed. Does a child understand things to the same capacity as an adult? Besides, their idea of a future life is often a result of the education to which they have been subjected, an education that urgently needs to be reformed. The language is too incomplete to express what transcends your present existence. So we have to communicate with you using comparisons borrowed from that existence. As a result, you have mistaken images and figures for reality. As humanity becomes enlightened, its thoughts understands much that its language is unable to express.
Okay, so here we are going to be talking about the idea of future joys or sorrows in relation to the spiritual world. Uh, One thing that they mention here is that we will have different ideas depending on the upbringing and sometimes the religious upbringing that we had. So, like we say, for Catholics, there is heaven and hell. For pagans, there was Valhalla. For the Muslims, there are different things. For Jewish people, there are different things. So, we all have different interpretations of what to expect. But one thing that they are saying here, it has nothing to do with this material nature that we may imagine over there, because we are spirit. So there we are talking about a different dimension, different things. But in a way, they say it is not because it's going to be different that it's going to be less real, or it's not because it's less material that it's going to be less real, that it's going to not necessarily impact us. Because in a way, like for instance, now we have so many impairments in considering our physical senses. Even the possibility of smelling, not everyone can smell the flowers like each other. There are flowers that to me may not have any smell, but to other one that has a more prominent sense of smell, they will say, but this is so nice. So in the spiritual world, we will be much more sensitive. Our senses are going to be much more accurate than now. The thing is, if we were going to be conducting an interview now, even with us right now, and I would go to each one of us and ask, what does heaven means to you? Well, currently, again, I'm on a diet, so I would say, well, it could be nice pasta with a strawberry shortcake and a carrot cake from my dear friend Sonny. Right? So this is heaven for me now, right? So
Yes.
and what would be hell? Oh, my parents all the time, picking on me. But to others, if I go to somebody else, to Vera, what would be heaven for you? To meet my mom right now, right? To me as well,
Right.
to be that, because she's no longer with me. So what represents hell to someone, that it would be, my mom is always on my case, to others is heaven. So we have this child childish way of, interpreting things, of seeing things. And in this way, we want to translate the idea of what we have of heaven and hell according to the notions we have. And as the spirits say here, they are not capable of explaining that to us. Can you imagine, 20 years ago, someone trying to come to you and explaining to you that we were going to be having our meetings on Zoom platform?
Oh my
First
God.
of all, you would say, what the heck is Zoom? Who came up with this name, Or, and I mean, that could not even be 20 years ago. It could be just 2 years ago, right?
Right.
So the spirits cannot, and I've been going through the Gospel according to Spiritism, and there they say over and over the difficulty they have to convey teachings to us and write images to us when we lack the vocabulary. That's why, in a way, the more we grow, the more we actually communicate more to the language of thoughts, the more capable we will be of understanding the concept beyond the words that every now and then we stuck with interpretation.
Yusara,
Yes.
once again, you have spoken so beautiful and understanding. I just want to say that we're able to smell and experience feelings because we have a physical body. Once we're not physical, that we're in the spirit world, there's nothing. It's like smelling the air, blank, blank. It's this physical body that is allowing us to experience a life from a more, shall we say, feeling life. Once you become a spirit, it's just emptiness. It's the physical body that we have now that allow us to experience all types of physical dimensions that we're not able to really appreciate in the spirit life.
The thing is, our physical body is actually an impairment for the spirit. It blocks our senses. It limits our actions. It obliges us to be, stuck in this planet, so to say,
Right? Yeah.
on planet Earth, walking with our own feet, feet. So it's more an impairment than actually something that we should miss when we return to the spiritual world. But even then, it is a necessary vehicle for us to manifest through the flesh on earth and go through the experiences that we and the life program that we have chosen for ourselves. So it's very necessary, but it's very much like when we think about a puppet, the doll. Our physical body is like a doll that we dress, we comb, we do whatever this doll needs, but it's not us. And it doesn't decide for us. What decide is always the spirit, whether it is connected or not to this doll, so to say. Otherwise, it's just this. It's just amount of flesh that allows our spirit to act on a material life with the materiality that belongs to that kind of life, that kind of planet. So it's also, again, very important for us not to blame the body, because always we are trying to blame the body. And if the body has cravings, it may have physical, chemical reactions that represents cravings, but that were imposed by our spirit. So if I, if I every day I eat chocolate, and then I make my physical body use it to that amount of chocolate to receive every day the chemicals that the chocolate will provide for my physical body. Of course, as a physical body, it will lack this substance when I do not provide it with that, because I've been doing this all the time. But it's not that is making us decide, because at the end of the day, if I say I don't want a chocolate anymore, it's not my body that is going to decide that for me. It's not my body that is going to make me do that. It's always my spirit, my choice. Am I going to feel physically the craving? Yeah, but it's something that my spirit has decided to do it.
Isara, once again, I always give you credit because you understand what this is where I'm spending most of my time concentrating on this issue with the body and the spirit, just like you say. And this is why I'm trying to present a case in the spirit against the spirit world based on all that you just said now. I will get other Kardashians that will get our minds together, explore and decipher and come to some understanding, because a lot has to do with the physical body. But that's where I'm at now, what you just described.
Okay. Anyone else would like to say anything?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's read question 967.
Yes. What does the happiness of good spirits consist of? In knowing all things, feeling neither hatred, jealousy, envy, ambition, nor any of the passions that make human beings miserable. Their mutual love is the source of supreme happiness. They have none of the wants or anxieties of material life and are happy in the good they do, because the happiness of spirits is always proportionate to their degree of elevation. Only perfectly pure spirits enjoy the highest happiness. However, others are happy on different levels. Between bad and perfect spirits, there is an infinite range of elevation and happiness, as the joy of each spirit is always proportionate to its moral state. Those who have already achieved a certain degree of advancement have a perception of the happiness of those who are further along. They seek higher happiness, but as an object of emulation rather than jealousy. They know that it is solely up to them to reach it, and they work to that end with the tranquility of a good conscience. They are happy in not having to suffer what inferior spirits endure. 968. Okay, stop here? Okay.
Yeah. No, 968, yes, please.
Okay. You stated that the absence of material wants is one of the conditions of happiness for spirits. It is not the satisfaction of these wants a source of joy for people? Yes, it is an animal pleasure. When people cannot satisfy those wants, they are tortured by them.
Okay.
Okay.
So, from what we see here, how wonderful it would be if we were rid of all the passions, all the things that cause us to live such an unbalanced life, a miserable life sometimes, when we are consumed by hatred, by jealousy, by ambition, but by everything that is actually this rebelliousness is the source of our anguishes today. So for the spirits to be rid of those petty emotions actually represents happiness. And I know that for us, because of the level of materiality, how inferior we are still, spiritually speaking, to the idea of not presenting any of those emotions that we would say those emotions are what make us humans. Exactly, those are what make us humans. Do you want to continue being human, or do you want to to track to the path of angelitude, of experiencing much loftier emotions, to experience joy and true brotherhood, friendship, love in this fraternal sense, and not in need of material things. We may like material things, and we do like material things, but the point here, as we always say, is not for us to renounce everything that is material, but
You said it.
Okay.
but maybe a floor, not even a bed, to lay down our physical bodies. So we actually, materially speaking, lack very little. We need very, very little. So as long as we understand that we may enjoy those things, that we may, give ourselves those things, but understanding that they are not important things for us, that they actually link us more to materiality than to spirituality. That is what we are trying to achieve. We are having an excellent time to reflect and to exercise this now. I don't know about you, but basically this crisis started, I think I changed tops, 6 clothes. And those that are going to make me feel comfortable at home, right? Not even shoes, because I like to not to wear shoes.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not wearing shoes. I'm wearing 4 or 5 different clothes, and that's it. I wonder, in the future, and I'm going to look at those videos and say, oh, I'm again wearing this, navy dress I've been using a lot, because it looks good enough for this kind of presentation, but it feels homey as well. So we are having now a completely different experience that is showing us that is showing that we don't need that much, and we need more solidarity. We need more, one being there for each other, and compassion, and charity, whatever we can to better the situation. Yeah.
Jussara, when I was reading these questions about the material needs and the source of happiness, it came in my mind the passage of the Samaritan woman. When you think about it, she was in this well that the prophet Jacob, much older Hebrew, built to feed the material needs of that farm and the community. Yeah, and then Jesus, many years later, thousands, come to the same place and offer to her a water that will satiate her spiritual thirst. And I think it goes back to what you're reading here now. We do have material needs, but as we start to spiritualize ourselves, as Julio gave a lecture about needs and wants, Julio Padovan, we realize that the needs are much less than you think. We're always going to have needs if you are incarnated. But the question is, do we really need all these things? And right now is a good example. Like I think about with the whole coronavirus, we are staying home. And some of us, the money that we have is enough. Before, we used to make much more, but the restaurants and all the needs from the outside world do like it seems that never ends. You always need a little bit more. But now with little, you realize you can do home cook, you can take care of your things at home with little and still will be happy. So I think the idea of happiness is perception as well, yeah? And there will be a moment that you look for this water that will satiate the real thirst of your souls. But until we get there, we need to go through the experience and learn by ourselves, yeah?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And okay, let's read the next one.
Okay. What does it mean when people say that pure spirits are united in God's heart in active devotion? This statement is an allegorical representation of the knowledge they possess with regard to God's perfections. They see and understand God. However, you must not interpret this metaphor any more literally than other statements of a similar nature. Everything in nature, from the grain of sand up, is devoted, meaning proclaims God's power, wisdom, and goodness. You must not assume that high spirits are absorbed in eternal contemplation, which will be an unwise and monotonous happiness, and furthermore, a selfish one, because their existences would be of a perpetual uselessness. They no longer undergo the tribulations of corporeal life, an exemption that is a joy in itself. As we said, they know everything. They make use of the intelligence they have acquired in helping the progress of other spirits. They find great joy in this occupation.
Okay.
What does this? Okay.
No, it's better to stop now. It's a different subject.
Okay.
So again, the spirits are trying to tell us here that it's very difficult for them to convey any kind of knowledge and understanding in relation to God and our communion with God. So like here, we have the idea that when you reach this level of perfection to be classified or as pure spirits, you are going to be connected somehow to God. But we always have this idea that, okay, it's like, it's my retirement. When I reach the stage of pure spirit, I retire. I already did everything. I already learned everything. Now I'm done, right? I reached the highest level possible of knowledge and progression, and that's it. In a way, that's very much the childish idea that we have. No more labor, no more worries, just there, like, like the how do you say that in English? The Lyceum for the Greek gods. The Champs-Élysées, the Greek gods. How do we say that in English? Philip, you always know those things. Well, at the Mount Olympus, where the gods live and just live that good life, okay? So we have this idea, and they say here, I mean, to have this understanding, it's so childish to believe that we are going to get there and that's it. So we have to assume that for the moment, the information that we have should be enough. The understanding that we will not be absorbed in internal contemplation, like they say here, but that we will be using our possibilities to help, like we see what they say about Jesus. Jesus is here, in charge of planet Earth. Who knows if any other, but we know from planet Earth. So there is always this continuation, which actually represents a devotion, which represents our way of praising God through the work and the possibilities that we will have in different stages of our spiritual evolution. Any comments or questions or?
Okay, so we continue.
Yes, okay.
Okay. 970. What does the suffering of inferior spirits consist of? Their suffering is as varied as the causes by which they are produced, and correspond to the inferiority of each spirit, as the joys of higher spirits are proportionate to their superiority. Their suffering may be summed up as follows: envying the superiority that makes other spirits happy and their inability to obtain it, feeling regret, jealousy, rage, and despair in regard to what prevents them from being happy, and being tormented by remorse and indescribable moral anguish. They long for all sorts of joys and are tortured by their inability to satisfy their cravings.
Okay, let's stop here because of the topic. And again, it's very important for us to read this question, thinking about both life in the spiritual world and life on earth, because as we always state, we are spirits. For the moment, living a material existence. But since it's our spirit that is actually promoting or provoking reactions and emotions according to our way of being, whether we are in the physical realm or in the spiritual one, we will be enveloped by the byproducts of our own thoughts. This is something that we quite often talk about when we say, according to what I'm thinking, I'm attracting energy, I'm attracting spirits, minds that will think alike. There is this saying that the criminal always returns to the scene or to the place of the crime, not necessarily physically. It always returns mentally with the thoughts of how the spirit reacts to that. So it's only natural then, when we return to the spiritual world, deprived of this physical body that stays on earth, we will find a place, an environment that is very much the byproduct of our own creations, of our own mental creations, our own mental stability or not. So my inferiority may take me to places where I will find people that have hatred like I have, that wanted to have revenge, that would like to kill or to destroy this or that person. So this is going to be the community that is going to attract me if this is the way that I think. And of course, being from an inferior perspective, without thinking clearly about no pain, no gain, we look at others that seems to be in a position of gain without understanding that for them to reach there, they had to go through the pain of eliminating from them the negative passions that would otherwise tie them in lower levels of life. But then for us, it's always easy to envy, to say that they didn't deserve to be there, that we are the ones that deserve to be there, but we don't think about all the work they have to do to be there. We are not talking about the physical world where not necessarily this rule applies. We may see lots of people that are very committed to the work and this and that, but it still cannot reach a comfortable position. And we may see lazy ones that just inherit a fortune and continue to be lazy for the rest of their lives. Okay, we are not talking about what we may say injustice. We may classify of the injustice of the world. When we are talking about the spiritual world, this kind of injustice does not exist. This kind of situation does not exist. It's marriage alone that will place us in higher positions, or if we don't have marriage, in lower positions, because we have to exercise in order to do that. So it's always the moral evolvement of the being that is going to give them and to provide them with a better situation in the afterlife. Remember that, effort counts, and all the struggles that we are doing now counts. And from when we return to the spiritual realm, from a different perspective, we will see, okay, I have to, to deal with certain things that are in me that are preventing me to have this kind of happiness that one day will be mine, and it will be. Okay?
You saw that.
Yes.
As you say, in the spirit world, as let's say, it's a mental life. They will their their guilt eventually will dissolve, and yeah, you see, we always come back to this the physical body. This is when spending a lot of mental energy trying to like a puzzle, break it up apart and put it together, and uh, and bring my case, like I say, and so it's a mental life. The physical, having that physical body made them do things that they will never. I mean, they would do, but they were actually able to do it. But eventually, their mental life, I don't think they will need any therapy or anything to eventually dissolve all the evil things they did physically.
Yeah, Orlando, this is actually a very complex situation,
Yes,
and
yes.
again, we do not have all the information or the ability to actually, understand what we are talking. Even when the spirits are telling us about the spirit life and all this, we don't have this. This understanding, a complete understanding about life of the spirit. So to say that is a mental life, it would not be mental, it would be more spirit, in terms of spirit. And like we have in question 76 of the Spirit's book, that say that we are the intelligent creation of the universe. So we are talking about a life of intelligence. And we know that up to a certain point, we are not entirely deprived of matter. There is still matter involved, but in a much more, ethereal form than the form that we understand here. So it's very, very hard for us, to try to deal with that. For the moment, I think that it should suffice for us, because if we try to do otherwise, we may imply in try to to bring theories that are only theories and not necessarily reality. So for the moment, suffice to say that, we are spirits, we live in a material life. When we return to the spiritual world, we still have some kind of physicality, and we will be, continuing with our lives, continuing with our affairs, but now from an immortal position, being more capable of not being impaired by the senses of matter to decide better for ourselves. So that life continues in this sense, and in this sense that we are going to have a return on earth. We are out of time now. I actually have to finish at 1.
It'll only take a couple of seconds.
Okay.
I want to know why other spiritists don't have the open mind that you have.
Well, maybe they do. They just don't express themselves, or they don't express themselves that openly like I do. But yeah.
Thank you.
Everyone has its own, its own style. It doesn't mean that they are wrong, or it's just, the way of each one of us. So, okay, let's go to Soraida's then, and we continue next week, okay?
Okay, fine. No problem. To our spiritual benefactors, our Christ, all that have contributed here in assisting us with the lessons being given to us. With our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you. Allow us to understand all the joys and sorrows of our lives, but more important, to understand why we are here. We are grateful for all that you've given us. May we take this with us and relate it in our lives through actions, less words, but more action. We pray for those that are going through suffering and pain and anguish. With our prayers in our hearts, may they receive blessing and strength and courage. And may we continue throughout the week with our studies and prayers to enlighten us and taking us to the best place that we can get to, is peace, love, and charity. Thank you, dear Lord. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting today. So be it.
So be it. Thank you.